Got a couple days of design to do. I think it let slip somewhere that I wanted the leader of the committee to come talk to you because he's not answering my phone calls. But anyway, we'll try and get a hold of Josh and get him in here so that you're not hearing this stuff secondhand. And I'm not sure when that's going to happen. But we do have a couple days of design work to do. In essence, I know the committee is meeting Monday night. I've been invited to that meeting. And in essence, we want to have stakes in the ground showing them where things are, so when they do that meeting, they can walk out on the field and actually visualize it. So in essence, we need to go out and survey on Monday and stake our design in the field. Now, for us to do that, we've of course got to do the design. So let's talk about the design and the elements and how we are going to do them. Keep in mind the drawing you're looking at here was just pulled off of Google Earth. Now, it is to scale. But the drawing from Google Earth is not to scale. Not exactly, not what we need it to be. Hence, that's why we went out last week and we went and got that information. We do have it exact where things are. So, in essence, for us to complete a drawing such as this, we want to do a site plan. We need to identify what's the important components of it and what we are trying to accomplish. So in essence, as you look at this drawing, what's one of the most important things you see on there? Let's just start a list and say, what do we need to identify where it's at for us to complete our job? Yes? Property line. Okay. So that's the first thing. We've got to develop a property line. Now, when we did the property line, what did we use for the property lines?
For the symbol?
Yeah, well, the symbol or the physical object, either or.
We used the grass line between the parking lot and the grass, and then the fence.
Okay.
Back.
Yeah, so we've got a kind of a tentative boundary on site, which was the church is over here. Here's the playing field for this middle school. So we use this tentative boundary here, and then we had a little fence system down here, and then that went this way.
There was also a telephone.
A what?
That telephone pole beside it?
That was a back site. That wasn't a property line. We're on property lines here. Okay, we're on property lines. Now we used a variety of descriptors. We're going to look at that we'll see on the machine. Now a couple things that you want to kind of pay attention to when we get out there. When we took these shots down in the corner, because we use this little section of fence right in here, right? As this part of it, and then we use this fence back over here. So we have something we can draw a line through here. We use this fence for this property line. Okay. So we need that. In fact, that is really the basis for the entire design, is that property line. Now, I did go out and re-look at it in much more detail on Saturday. And one thing you folks don't know yet is that I got a call Friday afternoon and a local concrete company had a big pour and they had some extra concrete, so they donated it. And so I went out and staked the dugouts Saturday night, and I don't know that they poured them yet, I haven't been back by there, but they had a pour going all week and they were gonna donate some concrete out of that. Okay, so it was a freebie for them. I went and staked out this dugout and this dugout. Okay? And I was by myself, the wind was blowing to heck. I'm plus or minus a couple inches on the stake. I'm not exact. My wife refused to go with me, so I never had somebody else to run the tape. It's too cold. But anyway, that happened. So I'm thinking by the time we get back out there, we will see those pads in there. Now, we've got the property lines. Now, when we go back out there, I would like you to take a look at this bottom corner where we use this fence line. Because who held the rod in this back corner for either of those survey instruments? I think Declan, I watched you do one. Hey, Sean, were you on the other one? Because wasn't I with you?
The GPS coordinates, yeah.
Okay. Did you two notice that little piece of rebar sticking out of the concrete right at the base of that pole in the very corner? When we go back out there, I want you to look at that because that's the property corner. That fence is actually about 1.5 inches outside of it. And then as you came up, so we came up the side and then we had those railroad ties where that other fence took off. There's actually a property corner there too. It's back behind it about 6 inches. Okay, so that fence is not really on the property line. But what we need to use for our property, because your shot you took in the corner is going to be almost perfectly accurate because you guys were right inside of it. You were right on top of that piece of rebar. And then we'll use this point that's way back over here. That's going to give us a really good boundary here. One I feel really confident in. It'll be plus or minus a couple inches. Okay. This fence we used here, we'll discuss the descriptors. The descriptors got put in the data collector wrong, but we have a really good line on that also. So you can get your property line from the survey. Okay, so that's one thing we need to identify. Now, what else do we need to identify for this field? Think of, and what I'm really asking, let me quantify this, physical objects already in place. Yes?
Trees.
Okay, we got to get the trees. Yep, we sure do. Okay. So we need the property line. 2, we need the trees. We need to identify them. Now, keep in mind, when we identify those tree locations, where was the instrument set up in relationship to the person holding the rod? Those, yeah, so let's say we were set up on the instrument somewhere about here. Okay. And I know several of you did trees. Where did you hold up the rod?
Up against the tree.
Close to the tree.
Yeah, you just set it on the trunk, right? So if I'm looking at a tree, they were all pine trees, right?
Yep.
There's a squirrel in there. Okay. So they're all pine trees. So you folks held it right here on the front of it, right?
Yeah.
So when you see these points on the screen, is that going to be the physical location of the tree? Okay. We're just going to use a circle. A lot of times when we identify trees, we will identify them either one of 2 ways. 1, just the location of them, or 2, you put a number next to it that either identifies the diameter of the trunk or the canopy. Okay. And they do it different ways depending on what permit groups use.
Well, we didn't make that.
No, we didn't, and we don't need to. We just need to locate the trunk. Okay. So we'll just have a circle on there that identifies it. Now, the reason I'm making a point of this is because we'll know where this point is. We'll see a point over here that says tree on it. But when I draw that circle, I can't draw it there. I've got to draw it here, right? And we can always get that because we can draw a line straight from there and then use our snaps to move it. Okay. And we want to get these as close as possible. And you'll see why when we back out here and we start looking at dimensions, the field is recommended to be 200 feet radius for the fences. We don't have 200 feet. Okay, so we want to get those trees right because we're going to have a fence that we place over here and we need to have that location. Okay. Any other physical objects that are out there that we need to be aware of? Yes, Missy?
The pipe?
Okay, pipes. Okay. So, and really what we're talking about here is our underground irrigation, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Underground irrigation.
Pump house?
Okay. Got the pump house. So when we're talking the pump house, that was that rectangular fence that sat around that. We just called it a house when we were standing out there. It's not really a house, it's an enclosure.
What about that trench that ran alongside the fence?
The field, the ditch. Okay, we took a measurement on that. We did not survey it, but we did take a measurement. So let's put that on there because we should, because really, keep in mind, we're gonna have a bunch of little kids running around this place, right? We've got a hazard. I'm surprised they haven't dealt with it. I know they're not dealing with elementary school kids at that school, so they're not thinking anybody's gonna hurt themselves in that ditch. But during the summer when this is being used, it's gonna be used for Little League, T-ball. Okay, so we do want to identify that ditch, okay? Because that will be a hazard. I don't think they'll really do anything with it, But we do certainly want to identify it.
The big concrete drain, or, just above the left dugout. I don't
Okay.
remember what we labeled that.
I think I'm going to call that an irrigation diversion.
Okay.
Diversion, irrigation. And I certainly think we want to get that because that's a significant hazard. And it's at, I think we took all, I think that's it on the picture about right there. There's a little rectangular piece where the water drops into, and then there's kind of a sump device to take that canal water. Anything else that we want to, yes?
Look at the asphalt on the other side.
Okay. The parking lot.
Somewhat, not really property line.
No, it's not a property line, it's a parking lot. Okay. Now, when we do the parking lot, I don't think we need the whole thing, but I do believe we took shots that's going to allow us to get this, and then we'll just put a note out here that says something like parking this way. Okay, right, our little standard deal. It's kind of outside of our design area, but it's important to the design because this is how people are accessing the property. Anything else?
Electrical panel?
Okay, the electrical panel. So pump house had a pump, electric, all in there, that's all together. Anybody think anything else? Okay. Now, why is this list important? Did we survey every single one of these devices? Okay. So therefore, when we download that data set, which you did on those 2 hard drives, by the way, I got to reset that one up, I had to move it. But they should be sitting on these machines. We should be able to draw those physical objects off of that survey and know the exact location of them. So that's the list of what we want to do. We want to draw these in that program we're going to use called Foresight, and then we're going to dump it in AutoCAD. Okay. Yes?
Do we have to indicate where grass has to be added or removed?
Yeah, but that's more of the design. Okay. Now let's get to the design part. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop open the survey set, and I'm going to get with the different groups and work with you individually for today and show you how to do this. We're going to get these items, we're going to get them and transport them into CAD where we can draw more efficiently. So these are the items we'll identify from our survey. Now let's talk about the design. In essence, for the design element, we have quite a few things on here. So I should say this is my existing list, right? So on the site plan, we also now have our design elements. By the way, we don't have to do any design with any of this. We just have to locate it. Okay. For the design elements, what's one thing we've got to design?
The dugouts.
Okay, the dugouts. Okay.
Where home plate is.
Okay. Can I just call that the field? Let's call that field. This is a big, let's just leave it at field, but this is a big thing, and Missy, I'm going to expand this from what you said. You said the bases. So we've got 4 bases.
Because everything is off of home plate.
Yeah. So we've got home plate, first, second, third. We've also got the pitcher's mound. We've got the baselines, we've got the infield, we've got the outfield. Okay. And foul territories, foul and in-play territories. Okay. So in essence, let's just call that a field. What else?
Don't we need,
And equipment.
foul ball fences behind, behind home plate?
Okay, backstop?
Yeah, backstop.
Okay. The backstop is identified on this drawing. It's really kind of two components, but it's in essence this area right here. Now the backstop, I think we can look at some pictures of some. Usually there's a hard surface directly behind where the catcher is that kind of sits in some fan to take the pitches that don't hit the batter. And then there's usually some type of fencing that's outside of that little zone.
We visited you in the two events on that property line.
Hey, yeah, what are these guys? Got some X's here? That's a symbol for a barbed wire fence. We're not putting barbed wire on this field. It will be a chain link fence. So we're going to do a chain link fence from the dugout to here. The length of the field is all. They wanted to leave this open so kids can move back and forth. I guess there's some afternoon programs and stuff over at the church that they use. On this side, we're going to go chain link, probably for a little section in here, and then run chain link out here again to the extent of the field. So we've got chain link. The committee did not want to go chain link on the outside here. Now we certainly could, but they didn't like the thought of the look of it. And you're going to have little kids kind of running into it, might rip themselves up. They wanted to get something a little bit safer for them. They wanted to go with some type of wood fence. They have not defined this wood fence.
Isn't that just, that's just a boundary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't they put up like one of the, they're kind of like a mesh fence?
The temporaries?
Yeah.
Okay. So they wanted something permanent. They're going to put a temporary fence along this boundary, right here. But they wanted to incorporate some entrance onto the field that was a little more permanent that they could get a sign on. So they went with the wood here. That's what they want to do. You could go with temporary on there, certainly you could. And in fact, when I talked it over with them initially, I kind of tried to push them that way because as you saw when we were out there, this field's used substantially for all the PE classes, all the P-League football is done on there, soccer teams are on there, so it's a multi-use field, right? And if we put a permanent fence on here, we destroy all that. So they decided to go temporary from here to here. They did want something a little more permanent here, so that when people came in, they didn't go through here, like something's in session, you know, people, they'll just always cut across. So they wanted to divert people back around this way. And they also wanted an entrance sign. I've never seen any concept of what this entrance sign is. In essence, hopefully we can come up with something. Maybe we go wood, maybe we do metal, maybe we can get the welders involved or use Ken's big, in cabinet making, his big lathe and makes a really nice router sign. That's
Mia
wood.
Memorial.
Yeah, Mia Travinsky, I think was her last name. But there's gonna be some, they don't want a gate in it, by the way. Now, I'm not really sure how, because if you think of most places you look at, like CSI softball field, they have kind of an arch structure that people walk through with the sign on it. I think the softball field says First Federal Field or something, because they paid a substantial amount of money to build it, so they got the sign. But this one, I don't know what we're gonna do here. I think we're open to any suggestions you folks may be able to come up with. Whether you sketch it, whether you say, let's build a 10-foot wood fence and let's just make block letters and put it on there and paint them a different color, you know, whatever. Yes?
Are they having a scoreboard type thing somewhere?
No scoreboard on this.
Because you could put a sign behind the dugout on that side too, or somewhere. I mean,
Well, they actually want
stop
2
there.
signs, I'm glad you reminded me of that. There's also gonna be a sign back here in the
Okay, back
dugout.
there for sure, okay.
Yeah, 'cause there are two
No
entrances.
scoreboard.
And they don't want a scoreboard because they didn't think they wanted to spend the money to run the electricity for
What about the seating
it. Dugouts,
and chairs?
dugouts.
Lawn chairs.
Now, we're not gonna get these. I'm sure that what will happen on the dugouts is that Filer Rec Department, they were involved on this committee because they're gonna take up ownership of this eventually. Just so you know, in the future, this school is slated to be torn down in about 4 years. And the parts that they don't tear down is going to turn into the admin for the school district, and that's where we're gonna move all of them. The field is going to be taken over by the city and used by the rec department. Okay. So that's the first question I heard on that when they said, oh, we're moving schools in 4 years. And I said, well, why are we doing this here? And they said, well, the city's gonna take it over. So this field's gonna be in perpetuality and turn into a park for the city. So none of this will be torn out. Dugouts. Oh, I wrote dugouts. Why did I write dugouts? What do we call those things? Bleachers?
Yeah.
Okay, so all we need to do is identify where they're going to go. The rec department has some mobile bleachers that they're just going to bring over to it. Now, they've talked about a couple other elements on this that we may get involved with. I don't think we're ready to make these decisions yet, or the committee isn't. So it would be real easy for us to put some bleachers right here. Okay. And they're mobile, so you can pick them up and move them on a truck. They'll seat, 50 people each, I think, so you can put 100 people in there, which there's no way you're getting 100 people at these games. What was the other? Oh, the other thought was, do we build berms along the side here so that we don't put bleachers and everybody brings lawn chairs? But you build a berm so you can get the lawn chairs up a little bit, they can see a little better. And you might want to take a walk out. In fact, maybe you folks as a group ought to go look at our softball field, because that's what they did there.
Would that mean the chain link fence would have to be higher?
No, I think the berms would sit through here. You can see through the chain link. Right. So the seating would be out here. Now, you do have a problem with the dugouts. Also, another school that's done that, if you want to see it, that's right across the street. What's that school right over there, Canyon Ridge? If you go look at their fields, they have berms that are about 6-7 feet high around all their fields, and they're meant for people bringing lawn chairs. I think Wood Rivers Field does the same thing.
Do you have to make space between the porta potties and little leagues there about?
Yeah, the porta potties are going to be on the church property.
Okay, so.
They've already agreed to that. They also have a constant restroom. And the committee they voted down putting a restroom out here because once we did that, we had to go ADA. And the cost of the restrooms would be more than the cost of the entire field. Okay, so everybody kind of shot that down and said, let's just use porta potties.
Will there be things like food trucks or concession stands?
Filer Rec has a mobile concession stand, and they have talked about bringing that out there. If that's the case, it would probably be sitting in the parking lot. Yes, Sean?
So is there gonna be a gate or something, in between the chain link fence and the equipment shed? Or do you have to go all the way around the fence to get out to use the bathrooms?
Currently, right now, you walk all the way around. Oh, you mean for the players?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the players are going to access this way. So yes, we should have a man-person gate shown on these. And I would guess that you would want it on this backside. Now, do we maybe make it bigger so that we could take like a four-wheeler with something to brush the fields and those types of things? It probably might not be a bad idea. But we do have access to bring, vehicles out here and here, so maybe that's not an element. But certainly, I think that's not a bad idea. There's a little man gate on each of those next to the dugouts. Okay. So chain link gates. And when I say a man gate, really what we're talking about there is just a 3-foot gate, right? 4 foot maybe, just so people
most of our fields don't even put gates there, it's just an open space you can
Yeah.
walk through.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe it's a,
Just back a little bit.
Well, so like right here in between the gate and the dugout and the equipment shed structure, there would just be a 3-foot gap before you
Yeah.
start the fence.
That's what I was thinking.
okay, yeah.
And then you,
And
cause
that would be something maybe we recommend to them.
That's where you can take down that fence.
Gates,
Put the equipment in there.
how about if I just put opening here?
Mhm.
Because certainly, I think we have all been on those fields, those gates quit working after 3 or 4 years, don't they? Kids trash them or something.
Yeah, and 95% of the time you don't even use them. You don't even really have a need to have one there.
Yeah. Well, the only need I can think of is you get a foul ball or something that goes squirting through there.
Well, you could do it
Still
where
around.
you went like this. So to walk in, you sort of zigzag. That's how my high school did it. On the,
Yeah, maybe offset the fence, so
Yeah.
take that out, so maybe we leave a gap and we move it back
Mm-hmm.
a couple feet. And I don't know that I'm really too worried about a foul ball squirting through these areas, because this is a pretty safe environment. This is a pretty safe environment. Okay, so kids go chasing after them balls, they're not gonna be in the middle of the street. Yeah. So give that a thought and talk over with your groups and see which way you wanna go. And then we'll make that recommendation. Maybe we vote on it as an entire class and which design we like the best. Yes, Sean?
What were the age groups you said are going to be using this field?
Probably up through 14, but primarily it's gonna be 12 and under.
Okay. So what about foul balls hit off of the right side of the field that go into that